Okay, the last thing that we're going to talk about in our biodiversity unit is what role do humans play in our environment? That's our essential question for today. So this goes with learning target 28. Develop, communicate, and justify an example of how humans can alter ecosystems. So now you're going to have to be able to come up with ways that humans alter ecosystems. So the last video on target 27 displayed some ways that humans can alter ecosystems and decrease biodiversity. And then that PowerPoint that you watched as well gave a lot of ideas on how humans can decrease biodiversity. So now let's talk about some more. So air pollutants are substances that contaminate the environment. So examples of air pollutants are soot, smoke, ash, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides. These chemicals are found in cars, trucks, airplanes, factories, power plants, home. They come from forest fires and volcanoes. Okay, so let's take a look at what those sources of pollution look like. So here's pollution going into the atmosphere from our factories, nuclear power plants, some more factories. Now another source of air pollution is smog. This is air pollution when sunlight reacts with pollutants produced by burning fuels. They irritate the eyes and they make breathing difficult. This is why so many young people are developing asthma that live in big cities. It's one of the reasons the scientists believe that so many younger people are starting to develop asthma is because in big cities there's a lot of smog. So that's an irritant. Okay, another source of pollution is acid rain. This is when air pollution from burning fossil fuels, and we learned about that at the beginning of the year. Fossil fuels are those non-renewable resources, coal, oil, and natural gas. They react with water in the atmosphere and they form acids. These acids have what we call a pH below 5.6. The effects of acid rain washes nutrients from soil. It causes death of trees, and it can harm aquatic life. So this is another way that humans are affecting ecosystems by increasing the amount of acid rain here on Earth. So if you take a look at this picture right here, factories are adding sulfates and nitrates into, those are chemical compounds, into the atmosphere. They bond with water, forming hydrogen sulfates and hydrogen nitrates that create the acid rain, that when that comes down as acid rain. Here's a picture showing death of trees. Okay, he's losing his umbrella. That really doesn't quite happen, but you know, just goes to show you why acid rain it's not good. Okay, another thing that humans are doing is causing the greenhouse effect. So sunlight travels through the atmosphere to the Earth's surface. Some of the sunlight is reflected back into space. The rest is trapped by certain atmospheric gases. The more gases in the air trap in more heat, which is causing global warming. That's causing a little bit of our temperature to increase. Humans increase the gases in the atmosphere, which changes the climate and it changes the biomes. So the more pollution that humans put into the atmosphere, the more heat gets trapped on Earth, and that can create a climate change and affect the biomes. So here's a picture. Sunlight goes through our atmosphere. Some is reflected back from our ozone layer and from clouds. But because we are adding pollutions from fires, chemicals called CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, those are in like aerosol cans, fossil fuels, the oil, factories, that is adding a lot more pollution into our atmosphere. So this radiation that should have gone through, like this one, back out into space, got trapped in. So that creates heat energy. That radiant energy gets transferred into heat energy, which is changing a little bit of the climate. So that's what the greenhouse effect looks like. Okay, ozone layer. That's the layer in our atmosphere that protects against the sun's UV rays. Because what I just mentioned, CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, and that should not be a semicolon, it should be a, there we go. From refrigerators, air conditioners, freezers, and aerosols cans, that releases chlorofluorocarbons. Those are chemical compounds made up of carbon, fluorine, and chlorine. Those are depleting our ozone layer. When our ozone layer depletes, our ozone layer protects against some of the UV radiation that we get from the sun. If our ozone layer starts getting what we call holes in it, like what happened over the Antarctic, then those really dangerous UV rays will get through. And that can damage us, cause cancer in our skin cells. So we want to make sure that our ozone layer stays strong. This is showing you the hole in our ozone layer above Antarctica. Now, since we have adopted some rules against banning CFCs, our hole in our ozone layer above the Antarctic is actually getting smaller. So we're actually repairing some of the damage that we have been doing. So that's a good thing. So we're aware of the problem and we're trying to fix it. Now, the last thing that humans do is we cause soil loss and pollution. So topsoil is an important part of plant growth. It takes 100,000 years for topsoil to form. Erosion from human activities, remember that's the movement of sediments, the movement of topsoil from human activity is increasing this soil loss. When we cut down forests, when we plow for farming, when we release human waste, and we create landfills, all of those processes are increasing soil loss. So here's an example of our farming creating runoff. We're taking away the soil, topsoil. Okay, here's an example of human waste being dumped. That's going to ruin our topsoil. Here's an example of a landfill and trash being thrown out. So all of these human activities are causing a loss in soil, which is going to hurt our plants. And remember, plants are really important to our ecosystems. They have the most energy in our ecosystem, and if without plants, we would not have primary consumers, so we wouldn't have food. And they also take out carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis in the carbon and oxygen cycle. So plants are really important. We don't want to take away plants on Earth. We want to make sure they're there. But if we start adding pollution and the human activities reduce topsoil, then plants will not be able to have that space to grow. So the last thing I want to end with is what humans need to do so that we can stop harming our ecosystems. So we've got the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So reduce is the use of natural resources. So when we talked about the beginning of the year, turning away from non-renewable resources like fossil fuels and using more renewable resources for a source of energy. So instead of burning coal and having coal power plants to change chemical energy into electrical energy, we need to start using wind and water and biomass, those renewable sources of chemical energy, so that we can turn that into electrical energy. Okay. Another thing we can do is reduce the amount of use of a car. If we can walk to school or walk to our place of work or bike or ride share, those are things that's going to reduce our effects on the ecosystem. Then we need to reuse. We need to use items more than once. So canvas bags versus plastic bags. We need to donate clothes. So we need to make sure we're using everything that we can. So when you go to the grocery store, instead of using those plastic bags, buy those canvas bags and reuse those. And then the last thing we need to do is we need to recycle. glass, metals, paper, plastics, buy recycled material. So that's why under my desk in my room, there's always a box that you can recycle all your paper, you can recycle all your glass and plastic water bottles or drinks, and we need to make sure we're using those. So this is the symbol for reduce, reuse, and recycle. It's a very important symbol to make sure you commit to memory. That is our 3 R's, ways that we can help the earth and stop harming our ecosystems. So don't trash our future, recycle. Okay, so hopefully after the video notes, you would be able to give me an example of how humans alter ecosystems. You would be able to justify, come up with supporting evidence on your example. You would be able to, in some way or form, whether it's through a PowerPoint presentation, a Show Me app, communicate your example, and then you've got to you've got to come up with the ways that we are altering the ecosystems and develop that whole process of your thinking and be able to justify it. So that's our last learning target for the year, learning target 28, really focusing on what humans are doing to alter ecosystems and some things that we could do to change that.